Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another how to play video. And today we are learning how to play Kingsfall, Guilds of Sindranil. And in case you did not get a chance to check out my preview video or you were just not familiar, this is a light 4X game for 2 to 6 players. But let's jump right in and learn how this game is played. And we'll get started with the setup of the game. So the first thing you need to do obviously is collect and sort all the various tiles and materials. And then you need to select which faction each player is going to play. And each faction has their own description of who they are. And in addition to that, each faction will have their own already unlocked ability on the tech tree. And that's simply based on whatever color you are, you have that ability unlocked. So you can look at both this and the information about the various guilds to decide who it is that you would like to play. For this particular example, I have chosen to go with the Thieves Guild, which is the white faction, and the Royals, which is the purple faction. Before I go any further, I should point out there are many more components than these. This is just out here so you have an idea of everything that you might be looking at. Once everyone has chosen their faction, you collect their pieces, and then you will each collect one board with the tech tree on it, and another board with your faction on it. In addition to that, you're going to be separating out a variety of tiles. You'll have your forests, your plains, your mountains, your water, your luxury tiles, and there are luxury tiles that also operate as each of these different terrains, and then your landmark tiles as well. In addition to that, you will take the capital, and along with that, you will take one forest, one mountain, 2 waters, and 2 plains, and that will make up the center of your playing area, and I'll show you how that looks in just a moment. Additionally, you'll need to take all of the discontent tokens and the damage tokens and organize and set those aside. And finally, you'll need to collect and organize all of the different resource tokens. They include the clear crystals, which represent luxuries, the gray 1, 3, and 9 tokens, which represent metal, the green 1, 3, and 9 food tokens, the brown 1, 3, and 9 wood tokens, and the golden 1, 3, and 9 gold tokens. Then each player will take 18 gold, 18 wood, 18 food, and 18 metal to their player area, though, just as a reminder, no one starts the game with any of the luxury goods. Next, each player will select the tiles that they would like to have in the game. It's important to note that each player will get to pick whatever tiles that they want and that they think that they would like to be present on the game board itself. It's also important to note that every player must take at least 1 water. In addition to that, we have landmark tokens and we have luxury tokens. In the current version of the rules, each player is allowed to take 1 luxury tile of their choice. To find out how many landmark tokens can be selected, you can check the rulebook and it will tell you how many can be in play dependent on the number of players in the game. Then everyone selects the tiles that they want. And then they set their tiles off to the side. Once that is done, you are able to set up the base game board. To do that, you place your city tile in the center of the board with the citadel on top. Then around it you place the other tiles that you selected at the beginning of the game. Once that is done, each player at random selects one of their tiles to be their home starting tile, and they set that off to the side. Then all of the other tiles are shuffled up, and then the players take turns laying tiles out face down around the board in any order that they would like. This allows you to decide either before the game starts or just let it evolve organically what the shape of the board is going to be. Once that has been done, each player will then take their home starting tile and they will place it next to some undiscovered tiles like so. Once that is done, then they will flip over all the tiles that are connecting to their home tile like this. And then once that is done, each player will take their city and they will place it on their starting tile. In addition to a city, they will place a single explorer meeple as well. And you will note that the explorers are the meeples that have the long staff next to them. For future reference, the ones with the sword and the shield represent warriors, and the ones with the hammers represent workers. Once that's done, then you have now set up the game and you are ready to begin. Once you've done that, the game is ready to begin. The game is going to be played over 4 different phases. These phases are the collection phase, the movement phase, the action phase, and the upkeep phase. So the first phase of the game is the collection phase. And during this phase, you will collect resources for every structure that you have out there. Every city will wind up giving you 3 gold, while any mines, mills, or farms, which are found respectively in the mountains, the forests, or the plains, and sometimes on the water, will reward you with 3 resources of their specific type as well. Metal for the mountains, food for the plains or the farm on the water, and wood for the forest. In addition to that, if you have uncovered a luxury and you have built there, what will happen is you will receive 3 resources for whatever the tile is. So in this case, this would also earn you 3 wood, or in lieu of that, you can take a luxury instead, which is represented by one of these gems. After you have collected all of your resources, you move on to the next phase of the game. The next phase is the movement phase. And in the movement phase, as you can guess, you'll be moving any of your various meeples that you have out on the board. And overall, it's fairly simple. If you have an army or a worker, they are able to move a single hex from wherever they are. There are upgrades that allow them to move further. And your explorers are able to always move 2 hexes at any given time. If an explorer enters a face-down hex, it is immediately explored and flipped over. If an explorer's first movement is into an unexplored hex, they are able to continue their movement into another hex once the first one has been explored. The reason for this is because if any unit winds up in a water hex, they will immediately lose their next movement, be that this turn or in the following turn. I will also point out that in this case, I flipped over a landmark. At any point when you discover a landmark, you will wind up receiving points for that. You will also receive 6 of the corresponding resource. However, I will talk about points a little bit later on in this video. Next, you move into the action phase. In the action phase, you have a variety of options of what you can do. Each city is able to produce 1 unit, and this allows you to get more workers, more explorers, or more armies. To purchase either a worker or an explorer, you will have to pay 3 food and 1 metal, or 3 gold. And that will allow you to build either worker or an explorer, and it will show up at one of your cities. It is important to note that each city that you control may only produce 1 worker each turn. If you are planning on producing an army, the cost for that is 3 food, 6 wood, and 6 metal, or 12 gold. The other actions that you can take are determined by the types of meeples that you have out on the board. Explorers have the ability to do what is called a trade action. Now, it's important to know the difference between trading with the capital city here and trading with other players. At any time during the game, you can make any trades that you would like with other players. It is completely up to you. It does not have to be a balanced trade. You can trade whatever you want. However, if you would like to trade with the capital, there is a very specific way that that is done. You will note that on one of your player boards, you have this space called caravans. At any time, if your explorer starts his movement phase in one of your cities, and you happen to have any luxury goods, you can put up to 3 into your caravan. Then, at any point, if, at the end of its movement phase, your explorer ends its turn next to the capital, you're able to trade up to 3 luxury goods for 3 gold each. Now, you will not be able to access this gold until your explorer makes its way back and ends its movement phase in one of your cities, at which point you will gain that gold. The other 2 meeples have their own abilities as well. The first one is the worker. The worker is able to build various structures. And if you take a look at your player board here, you will see the costs for each thing that you might want to build. In addition, you also have the cost for the different types of meeples here as well. There are 2 types of structures that a worker can build. It can build a resource node, which can either be a mill, a farm, or a mine, or it can build a new city. In order to build any of the basic resource nodes, it will cost you 3 wood and 3 metal and the worker. After you've paid that, then you are able to replace your worker with the resource node, like so. Building a city is a little bit different. As with the resource nodes, building a city will consume your worker. However, it is significantly more expensive to build a city than to build a basic structure. In order to build a city, it will cost you 12 metal, 12 wood, and 12 food. I will point out that there is no option to use gold to build a city. It's also worth pointing out now that you can increase the relative level of a city. You do not have to build a second city somewhere else. In fact, you can simply continue to upgrade an existing city. In order to do that, it still costs 12 of each of these resources, but it will not consume a worker to do that. If you have upgraded a city, it does mean that in your production phase, you will get 3 extra gold for each level of the city. The other purchase that you can make during this phase is you can purchase new technologies. As you'll see, you have 4 different advancement trees here. And as I've already mentioned, you do start the game with one of them already purchased. In the case of the thieves here, I've already started with pilfer purchased. Outside of your starting ability, you're able to go down any of these trees in any order you want. However, it's important to note that you must start at the top of each tree before you can get to the one below it. If at any point you manage to fill an entire tree, then you will be rewarded with claim points, which again, I will be explaining claim points later on in this video. It's important to note that during any given turn, you are never allowed to unlock more than one technology, even if you have the requisite gold to do so. The final type of unit that you might have is an army. Armies are very simple. Armies can attack. If at any point an army attacks a non-army meeple that is not defended by another army, they will immediately be destroyed. And if at any time an army is able to attack a structure, not a city, but a structure that is not defended by another army, then that structure will take a discontent token. And as we will discuss a little bit later, if it ever receives a second discontent token, it will be removed from the map. However, if you are attacking an army, on your turn, you simply announce that you are attacking, and you will do a single damage to an army. If an army ever receives 3 damage, it will be destroyed. The only exception to this is if your army is suffering from discontent. I'll talk about how you gain discontent a little bit later on, but know now that if your army is discontented and it is attacked, it is immediately destroyed, regardless of how much damage it has taken. It's also important to note that an army can still attack, even if it is discontented. Cities also have the ability to fight back. It's important to note that a city will always do 3 damage to an army, so one attack from a city on an army will always destroy it. Each level that a city has can take 3 damage. It's also important to note here that even if you have more than one level, you are not able to parcel out where the damage goes to keep your city from being destroyed. In this situation, if I had taken 3 damage, I could not put 2 on one level and 1 on another. All 3 would have to go to a single level, which would then destroy the city. It's also important to note that if a player has an army in the same space as one of their resource nodes or a city, an opposing player must attack the army first before it's able to move on and attack the city. The final thing that needs to be pointed out here is when you're building structures and you choose to build on a landmark, you will wind up gaining an additional resource of whatever type of tile it is because you have built on a landmark. The final phase of a turn is called the Upkeep Phase. During the Upkeep Phase, you have to pay for every single unit that you have out on the map. If you're unable to pay, then whatever units you choose not to pay for will become discontented. Every single resource node that you have, be it farm, mine, or mill, will cost you 1 gold in upkeep each turn. Every city that you have and meeple, be it worker, explorer, or army, will cost you 1 food to upkeep. I should also point out here that every single city also on its own provides enough food to upkeep a single one of your meeples, again, be it army, explorer, or worker. It is important to note that you cannot use the food provided by a city to maintain the city itself. Let's talk a little bit about how discontent works. What discontent does is it represents that your city or your structure that you have out there or your explorers are unhappy because they have not been fed or they have not been paid on a given turn. At any time, if a worker is discontented, then that worker will be unable to build at all that turn. A discontented explorer is only able to move 1 hex, while a discontented army will be destroyed if it is attacked. If a city or a structure is discontented, it will simply not produce anything that turn. However, it's important to note that if at the end of a turn you fail to pay the upkeep for an already discontented unit, that unit will be removed from the map. It's also important to note that you can always shift around what it is that you are paying for. So, for example, if this is my situation that I have a single city and I have 3 meeples out here, one of them who is discontented, and I also have 1 food at my disposal, I can pay my 1 food to make my army here happy, and use my 1 resource from the city to make sure my explorer stays happy, which would make only my worker be discontented. And if I was in the same situation again at the end of next turn, I could do that again and continually move around who it is that is particularly unhappy with me at any given moment. And again, as a reminder, if any of your structures or units are ever discontented for a second time, then they are removed from the map. If at any point you wind up with no meeples and no structures or cities on the map, you have been eliminated from the game. Once your upkeep is complete, you would pass the turn to the next player, who would then do the exact same thing with their turn, and you would go back and forth until one player has either been completely eliminated or has met the victory point plateau. Let's talk very quickly about victory points. Victory points in this game are called claim points. The first player to get 15 claim points will be the winner. You obtain claim points in a number of different ways. For every structure that you build, you will gain 1 claim point. For every landmark that you discover, you will gain 1 claim point. Every time you get 27 of a single resource, then you will gain 1 claim point. If you have exchanged 6 different luxuries at the Citadel, you will attain 1 claim point. You'll also gain 2 claim points every time you complete a tech tree, and in addition to that, you will gain 2 claim points every time you manage to build a city. However, you can also gain claim points through combat. If you manage to destroy an opposing city, you'll gain 3 claim points. If you destroy one of their resource nodes, you'll gain 1 claim point. Destroying one of their armies will also gain you a claim point. I will also take this moment to issue a reminder that the game does allow for you to make any kind of deals that you would like throughout the game. You can make promises, you can make alliances, non-aggression treaties, whatever it is that you would like to do. You can sell your loyalties, and you are allowed to backstab anybody you want at any time. There are no rules about keeping promises or honoring deals that have been made. So just keep that in mind as you go into the game. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope if you have any questions, you'll leave them down in the comment section. If you're interested in this game, you can find both a link to my preview, as well as a link to the active Kickstarter, or where you can sign up to be notified when the Kickstarter actually launches. As always, thank you so very much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.